I first saw her on a Wednesday morning, the kind where the sky can't decide if it wants to brighten or stay dull. I was sitting in the corner booth of the only cafe near my apartment, the one that pretends to be quiet but always hums like someone left a radio on in another room. I wasn't waiting for anyone. I rarely was. It was just my routine: coffee, a half-written message to no one in particular, and the same playlist I never updated. She walked in like she already knew where she was going. Not confidently, just with that steady, collected way older women move, like they're saving their energy for things that matter. She wore a slate gray coat, her hair slightly messy in the back like she'd tied it quickly. She didn't look at anyone, but the air around her shifted enough that people noticed her anyway. She was older, mid-40s, maybe, and somehow familiar. She reached the counter. The barista smiled at her. "Usual?" he asked. She nodded. "Please." Her voice was low, warm, like she spoke sparingly and only when needed. I tried not to stare. Tried. Not very convincingly. When she turned, her eyes skimmed the room the way someone scans for a free seat, and for a second, maybe less, she paused on me. Just long enough for me to fold the edge of my napkin without thinking, a tiny nervous habit I hadn't done since high school. I looked down at my phone even though it was blank. An unsent text sat in the chat box to my ex from weeks ago. Still there. Still unsent. Still pointless. When I looked up, she was walking toward the table next to mine. She set down her cup gently, as if she was afraid of making noise. Something about that small caution tugged at me more than I liked. We weren't close enough to talk, but close enough that I could see her fingers around the mug, slender, a gold band on one, the kind that told stories without her saying anything. She sat down, opened a book, read the same page twice, then gave up. I caught myself watching her hands again. I flicked my eyes away quickly. After a few minutes, she glanced over, a tiny curious tilt to her head. "You're here early today," she said. I blinked. "You remember me?" She smiled, barely but real. "You always order the same thing, and you sit in that corner like you're guarding it." I huffed a quiet laugh. I didn't think anyone noticed. "Well," she wrapped both hands around her cup. "Some people are hard to miss." My pulse jumped in that subtle, embarrassing way. I hid it by tapping my thumb against the table, like I was thinking about something important. Her phone buzzed. She checked it, then set it face down, lips tightening for less than a second. A micro-expression, gone almost instantly. "Long morning," I asked before I could stop myself. She exhaled slow. "It's been a week." Another pause. "But coming here helps." Something about that felt heavier than it sounded. Like she wasn't talking about coffee. We didn't speak for a while after that. Just shared air, the soft clinking of cups, the too loud espresso machine. When she finally stood to leave, she hesitated. Actually hesitated, beside my table. Her eyes flicked to mine, then to the napkin I'd folded into a long, thin strip. "See you tomorrow?" she asked. I wasn't sure if it was a question or something closer to hope. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Tomorrow." She nodded once, almost shy, and walked out. I watched her through the window until she disappeared around the corner. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. It's about my wife." I stared at it, pulse uneven, and the napkin slipped from my fingers that I didn't sleep much after the text. The words kept circling my thoughts in slow, uneven loops. "We need to talk. It's about my wife." The sender never followed up. No name, no missed calls, nothing. Just that single line sitting on my screen like it knew something about me I didn't. By morning, I convinced myself it was a wrong number. Or spam. Or something that didn't concern me. But as I walked toward the cafe, I felt a quiet pressure in my chest I couldn't shake. Like the day had already decided what it wanted from me. She was already there. Same table. Same mug. Same careful posture. As if the world might ask something of her at any moment. She looked up when I entered. That tiny flicker of recognition, warm, almost relieved, hit harder than it should have. "Morning," she said as I sat across from her, not even bothering with my usual corner. "Morning," I answered. She raised a brow. "Abandoning your post today?" I tried to play it off with a half smile. Thought I'd changed the view. But the truth was simpler. I just wanted to be closer to her. The barista set down my drink. She nudged her mug slightly toward mine. close enough that the handles almost touched. Not an accident. Not quite an invitation either. For a while, we didn't talk. We just shared the slow rhythm of the cafe, clinking porcelain, the hiss of steam, the door chiming occasionally. She broke the silence first, fingers lightly tracing the rim of her cup. "You look tired today." "Did I?" I asked. "You keep blinking like you're trying to stay awake." I opened my mouth to deny it, then shut it again. "No point pretending. Just a weird night," I said finally. She studied me in that quiet, older woman way, gentle, but perceptive enough to unsettle you. "Nightmares?" she asked. "No, just thoughts." I hesitated. "Random messages." Her eyes flicked up. "From someone important?" "Not anymore." She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. She probably did. Her fingers tightened around her mug, and for the first time, she looked uncertain, like she was debating something. "My husband used to text me like that," she said softly. One-line messages that meant more than they said. I looked at her hand, at the wedding band still resting there. "I didn't know you were married." She breathed out slowly, gaze drifting to the window. "I was." The phrasing hit me. Not am. Was. She didn't elaborate. I didn't ask. Some truths don't need details to feel heavy. Instead, she sipped her tea, then set it down with a shaky exhale she tried to hide. "I'm sorry," I said. "You don't need to be." She gave a thin smile. "It was a long time ago. But grief stays in places you don't check often." I swallowed. The air felt different now, denser, more fragile. I shifted in my seat, unsure how close I was allowed to feel. "You must have loved him a lot," I said. Her eyes tightened, but she didn't look away. "I love the idea of not being alone," she murmured. "Sometimes that's different." We fell quiet after that. Her vulnerability lingered between us like a shared secret neither of us meant to reveal. To distract herself, she reached for a packet of sugar, tapping it against the table. The rhythm was uneven, like her thoughts were elsewhere. "Can I ask you something?" I said. She nodded. "Why do you come here every day? Same time. Same seat." She gave a tiny laugh, surprised at herself. "Habit," she said. Then, softer, "And because. I like how quiet it feels with you here." My chest tightened, not painfully, just sharply enough to make me inhale slowly. "You barely know me," I said. "I know the way you sit when you're thinking," she replied. "I know you reread your messages twice before deciding not to send them. I know you stir your coffee even after the sugar dissolves." I blinked. She looked almost embarrassed to have said that much. "I don't know why that moment stayed with me," I said quietly. "Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me." Her gaze lifted. Soft. Unsteady. Nearby, a couple laughed loudly, but the sound felt distant, like it belonged to a different world. She reached forward, brushing a crumb from the side of my cup. A small gesture, barely a touch, but her finger lingered half a second too long. "I see you," she whispered. It wasn't a confession, wasn't a flirtation, just a truth she couldn't unsay. I didn't move, didn't breathe. She pulled her hand back slowly, eyes dropping to her tea as if she hadn't done anything unusual. But my pulse refused to settle. And for the rest of that morning, her small gesture, just the light brush of her finger, burned brighter than anything else that happened. The next day, she wasn't at the cafe. Her empty table felt louder than the steam machine, louder than the chatter, louder than my own thoughts. I kept glancing at the door without meaning to. Every time it opened, I straightened. Every time it wasn't her, something inside me dipped a little, like a step missed on a staircase. I told myself it didn't matter, that yesterday had only felt intense because we'd both been tired, because grief makes people softer, because I imagine half of it. Still, I checked the time 3 times in 10 minutes. I was stirring my coffee long past dissolved sugar when someone slid into the booth across from me. My coworker, Ollie. "Great. Bro," he said, eyebrows raised. "Why do you look like you're waiting for bad news?" "I'm not," I said too quickly. He watched me, then followed my eyes toward her usual seat. "Oh." His grin widened. "Interesting." "It's not." I stopped. Explaining would make it real. Explaining would make me aware of exactly how close I'd been sitting yesterday. Ollie leaned back, arms crossed. "She's older, huh?" I felt heat rise in my neck. He smirked like he'd already won. Relax, he said. Just saying, you look like someone pulled the plug on your favorite playlist. I wanted to push him out of the booth. Instead, I sipped my coffee and hoped he'd get bored. He didn't. Be careful, he added, tone lowering. These things get complicated. Before I could respond, the door chimed. She walked in. Same coat. Same hair slightly messy at the back. But today, she looked distracted. Her eyes skimmed the cafe, caught mine, froze. Just for a second. Then she forced the smallest smile, the polite kind you give when you're not sure you're allowed to offer more. Ollie noticed. Oh damn, he whispered. That's her. I kicked him under the table. She ordered her drink, but her gaze kept flicking to us. Fast, hesitant. She took her usual seat, but her hand stayed still on her lap instead of wrapping around her mug. I couldn't sit there with Ollie's commentary breathing down my neck. I'll be right back, I muttered. Sure, he said, smirking way too knowingly. When I approached her table, she looked up, startled. Sorry I wasn't here earlier, she said immediately. Something came up. You don't have to explain, I said. Her fingers picked at the cardboard sleeve on her cup. Nervous. That was new. You weren't alone today, she murmured. Just a friend. She nodded slowly. Oh, the way she said it. Soft. Withdrawn. Like she'd pulled a curtain shut between us. You okay? I asked. Fine, she said too quickly. Then quieter. I just didn't want to interrupt. You never interrupt. Her breath hitched a little. Almost invisible. The silence thickened. Not uncomfortable, just charged. A quiet, warm pull neither of us addressed. She reached for her mug, but her hand brushed mine on the table. A light touch. Barely a graze. She froze. I did too. Her eyes lifted. Close. Too close. Maybe we shouldn't, she whispered. Maybe, I said. But neither of us moved. For a moment. Just a breath. We leaned infinitesimally forward, the space between us thinning to almost nothing. Then the door chimed again, breaking everything. She jerked back slightly, fingers curling around her cup like she needed something solid to hold. I should go, she murmured. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to stop her. She stood, hesitated, then looked at me with a quiet, wounded softness that felt like both an apology and a question. Tomorrow, she said. Not a promise. Not quite hope. But she left it hanging in the air. So dangerously close to meaning something more. She didn't come the next day. Or the day after that. By the third morning, I wasn't even pretending anymore. I kept checking the door so often the barista laughed under his breath. I told myself it was fine. People get busy. People have lives. But something tugged at me, slow and constant, like a pulled thread in a sweater. Around noon, I finally stepped outside. The air was cold enough to sting, the kind that wakes you up whether you want it to or not. I walked without direction, past familiar blocks, past the small shops she always paused at. I wasn't looking for her, but I was. I found her sitting on a bench near the bookstore a few blocks away, coat wrapped around her tightly, hair tucked behind one ear, staring at nothing in particular, like she'd been holding her breath for hours. She looked up when I stopped in front of her. Her expression flickered, surprise, relief, guilt, all in one soft shift. Hey, I said. Hey, she answered, voice barely there. She scooted slightly, making space, as if she'd expected me all along. I sat beside her, a small distance. Not enough. You disappeared, I said gently. She looked down at her hands. I needed time. For what? A long pause. The kind that scrapes something raw on the way out. To remind myself who I'm supposed to be, she whispered. I swallowed. Did something happen? No. Yes. She exhaled sharply. I saw you with your friend. I saw how you laughed with him. How easy it was. That made you leave? It made me feel stupid, she said. Quiet, honest. Stupid for thinking you were looking for me. Her voice cracked on the last words. Barely, but enough that I felt it somewhere deep. I wasn't looking for him, I said. I kept checking the door for you. That made her freeze. I didn't want that, she whispered. I didn't want someone noticing when I wasn't there. But I did. She pressed her fingers to her forehead, as if trying to hold her thoughts still. This can't happen, she murmured. What can't? Another long pause. The air between us felt electric, fragile. She stared at the ground. I'm older. Too much older. You should be with someone who doesn't carry as many ghosts. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I watched her shoulders tense, watched her hands curl into her sleeves the way nervous people hide their palms. Age isn't the problem, I finally said. Then what is? You're pulling away. She flinched. Not dramatically, just a small, sharp jerk she immediately tried to hide. I don't know what you want from me, she said, voice trembling despite her control. Neither do I admitted. But I know how I feel when you look at me. She swallowed hard. And how is that? She asked. I turned to her fully. She didn't move away. Seen? I said softly. Like you notice parts of me no one else does. Her breath caught. One tiny intake of air she tried to hide. I shouldn't, she whispered. I shouldn't let myself. But you do. A quiet tremor went through her. She looked away first, staring across the street, at a couple laughing as they walked by, at people living uncomplicated lives she couldn't step into anymore. I feel things I don't want to feel, she said, so quietly I almost missed it. Her voice wavered. Her hands were shaking. I reached out instinctively, but stopped just short of touching her. My hand hovered there, the space between us thin enough to feel the warmth of her skin. She stared at it, at the almost touch, at the line we were both standing on. If you touch me, she said, barely breathing, I won't know how to stop. Silence followed. Deep, trembling silence. A silence where everything unsaid pressed against both of us. I lowered my hand slowly, but didn't pull it away completely. It rested near hers, inches apart, close enough to tip into something irreversible. She closed her eyes. Why does this feel like losing control? Because it is, I said. Her eyes opened, soft, scared, wanting. What happens if we stop pretending this isn't real? She asked. She wasn't really asking, but she also was. That was the question, hanging between us. Fragile, dangerous. And I didn't have an answer. The next morning, I went to the cafe early. Earlier than usual. Earlier than I'd ever admit if someone asked. She didn't come. Fine. Maybe she was avoiding crowded places. Maybe she needed space after the bench, after the almost touch neither of us were ready for. I waited anyway. Finished my drink. Started another. Watched the door open and close so many times I stopped pretending I wasn't looking for her. By lunchtime, something felt off. Not heartbreak, just this strange, suspended feeling. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I told myself I wasn't going to her house. Then I somehow ended up walking down her street anyway, rationalizing it with half-formed excuses. I'll just pass by. It's on the way. Coincidence. Her house was small, older, with a porch that leaned slightly to one side. I'd never been this close to it. The curtains were drawn. No lights on. A quiet that felt intentional. I stood across the street for a moment. Did nothing. Went home. By evening, I kept replaying the bench moment in my mind. How her voice had trembled. How her fingers had curled into her sleeves like she was holding herself together. How she asked the question neither of us dared answer. What happens if we stop pretending this isn't real? I didn't have an answer then. I still didn't. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. We really need to talk. It concerns my wife. My stomach tightened. Same number as before. No name. I stared at the message too long, trying to understand why the word wife kept stabbing into a part of my mind I didn't expect. I typed back, "Who is this?" Then deleted it. Typed again, "Stop messaging me." Deleted it too. Eventually, I put the phone face down and walked away. But sleep wouldn't come. The next day, the cafe felt different. Crowded. Too loud. Like every chair was taken except the one across from me. Hers. The barista even glanced at the empty seat when I ordered, as if asking without words. Around noon, the door chimed. My chest lifted, but it wasn't her. It was a boy. Maybe 16. Hair messy. Hoodie half-zipped. He looked lost, scanning the cafe like he wasn't sure he should be there. He stopped when he saw me. Do you live near Oak Street?" he asked. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Why?" He scratched the back of his neck. "My mom wanted me to check on someone. I think that someone is you. Your mom." He nodded. "She said you come here every day? And that you talk." My entire body went still. "Your mom?" I repeated. Is she? He named her. Her full name. A small, quiet twist cut through me. She had a son. Not a child, a teenager. Old enough to notice. Old enough to ask questions. He sat down uninvited, shoulders tense. She's been weird lately, he said. Quiet. Distracted. She keeps checking her phone like she's waiting for something. I swallowed hard. What did she say about me? Nothing, he said. That's why I'm here. I've never seen her act like this. He looked at me then, not accusing, just trying to understand a puzzle he didn't have all the pieces for. I just want her to be okay, he said softly. Something inside me pulled taut. I'm not trying to hurt her, I said quietly. I didn't say you were. He stood. Just, whatever's going on, please don't disappear without saying anything. She hates when people leave suddenly. He walked out before I could respond. I sat there, pulse echoing in my ears, trying to process the new shape of everything. She had a son, old enough to worry, old enough to see her unraveling. And she hadn't told me. I pulled out my phone, typed a message to her. Are you okay? Deleted it. Can we talk? Deleted. I miss you. Deleted instantly. In the end, I left the cafe without sending anything. No message. No knock on her door. No explanation. Just an empty seat across from me. And the sense that something had shifted in a way neither of us could undo. He didn't expect her to still be in the kitchen when he walked in. The light above the stove was the only thing on, and it washed the room in that soft gold that made everything look gentler than it really was. She stood with her hands braced on the counter, like she'd told herself she would stay only a minute and somehow ended up frozen there. He stopped a few steps away from her. Not close, not far, just waiting. She didn't turn, but her shoulders rose slightly. I heard the door. Thought you'd gone out. No, he said. Just needed air. She nodded once, and her fingers curled against the counter. A tiny movement, but sharp enough to show everything she wasn't saying. He almost walked past her, almost pretended nothing needed to be said. It would have been easier, just keep everything tucked under the skin, like always. If he didn't speak, nothing would break. But something already had. He cleared his throat. We should talk. Her eyes closed. I know. He waited for her to look at him, but she didn't. So he moved closer, slow, careful, until they were standing side by side, but facing different directions. He could feel the warmth of her arm, the tension humming under her skin. I messed up, he said quietly. She breathed out, shaky but controlled. Yeah, I didn't mean to hurt you. You did anyway. The honesty landed between them like something heavy placed on a fragile table. He rubbed the back of his neck, searching for the right words, real words. Not the polished ones he usually used to avoid saying anything meaningful. I didn't know how to deal with it, he said. With you. With how close it felt. She finally turned her head toward him, not fully, just enough that he could see the profile of her face in the warm light. Her expression wasn't angry. That almost made it worse. She looked tired, like she'd carried this alone long enough. You could have just told me, she whispered. I know. You think I wanted you to be perfect? That I needed you to say everything right. She let out a breath, shaky. I just wanted you to be honest. His chest tightened. That scares me. Her lips pressed together. Yeah, me too. Silence pulled between them, quiet but not empty. The kind that forced truth out of hiding. He took a small step, not touching her, but close enough that the distance stopped feeling like a wall. I care about you, he said. The words were simple, but they scraped on the way out. More than I've been willing to admit. Her eyes lifted to his, steady, searching. He felt the weight of it, how much she needed him to actually mean it this time. And I don't want to pretend I don't anymore. She swallowed. So what now? He didn't have a perfect answer. Just the truth he'd been avoiding. I want to try, he said quietly. Not the safe version. Not the distant version. I want to actually try. A beat. But only if you still want that, too. Her breath caught. Barely, but he saw it. The vulnerability in her eyes wasn't dramatic. It was small, raw, the kind that only shows up when someone is still deciding whether they can trust you with the last fragile part. She stepped back just enough to lean against the counter, watching him. You hurt me, she said. I know, he replied. And I'm scared it'll happen again. He nodded. I'm scared of messing up. But I'm more scared of losing you. Her fingers tapped once on the counter. Nervous habit. Then she pushed herself off it and took a slow step toward him. Just one. You're not going to get some big speech from me, she said. I'm tired. I don't need a speech. She studied him, his face, his posture, the uncertainty he wasn't able to hide this time. And something in her softened, just slightly. Okay, she whispered. A tiny word, but enough. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. She moved a little closer, close enough that their arms brushed. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't even a full touch, just a quiet reminder that the door wasn't closed. He turned his hand palm up on the counter. An invitation, nothing more. For a moment, she hesitated. Then her fingers slid into his. Light, unsure, but real. No fireworks. No dramatic music. Just the soft clink of the stove light humming and two people choosing not to walk away. Okay, she said again, softer this time. And he smiled, small, grateful. They stood there, not fixing everything, not promising perfection, just holding on to the one thing they could both manage right now. A beginning that didn't need to be loud to matter. Time didn't fix everything. But it gave them enough room to breathe. Weeks passed, quiet ones mostly. The kind where life looks the same on the outside, but inside, something slowly reorganizes itself. They didn't talk every day. They didn't force anything. But the calls became easier. The silences became softer. And the small things, those mattered the most. Like the way he started showing up 5 minutes earlier than he needed to. Or how she no longer hesitated before answering when she saw his name on the screen. Or how their morning routines, once separate and rigid, began to find gentle overlaps. It wasn't dramatic. If anything, it was painfully normal. But that's what made it feel real. One Tuesday, at 8:47 a.m., she opened the door before he knocked. You're early, she said. You're punctual, he replied. It made her smile, barely. The kind of smile she'd once been scared to show him because it revealed too much. This time, she didn't look away. The kitchen wasn't tense anymore. Still small, still cluttered, still lit by the same soft natural light, but comfortable now. Familiar. He leaned against the counter like he used to, but without the stiffness. She poured hot water into her mug, the scent of tea rising in soft spirals. He took his usual seat, his black coffee cooling untouched in front of him. There was a rhythm to mornings like this. Not rehearsed, not forced. Just a quiet settling. How's the project going? She asked. Better, he said. I'm actually letting people help me this time. Her eyebrows lifted. That's new. He smirked. Don't get used to it. Oh, I'm already impressed. They fell into easy conversation. Not about their past fight. Not about promises or fears or what-ifs. Just life. Small, manageable life. The kind they both knew how to handle. Later, when she walked him to the door, something in the silence lingered, the good kind. He hesitated for half a second, then reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. No words. Not a declaration. Just a gesture that meant, I'm trying. I'm still here. She didn't flinch this time. She let the warmth of it settle. They found their way back to the park bench, eventually. It wasn't planned. It was one of those late afternoons where the sky felt too heavy to stay indoors. She texted him, Bench? He replied, On my way. When she arrived, he was already there, hands in his pockets, looking like he was replaying something in his head. But when he saw her, the tension eased. You beat me, she said, trying to change my reputation. They sat shoulder to shoulder, not touching, not leaning, just close enough that the space between them felt intentional. The bench was cold from the earlier rain, the ground still damp, the air crisp. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Leaves rustled overhead. Life happening around them, quietly. She took a slow breath. I didn't think we'd get back here. Me neither, he said. But I'm glad we did. A gust of wind pushed a leaf into his lap. He flicked it away. She pulled her coat tighter. Nothing profound. Nothing poetic. Just two people sitting on something that used to hurt, now softened by time. He turned slightly. Are we good? She didn't rush her answer. We're getting there. That's enough for me. She nodded. It was enough for her too. The sun dipped lower, painting the world in a warm, muted gold. She rested her hands in her lap. He glanced down, hesitated, then placed his hand beside hers, palm open, not touching, waiting. She looked at him. This time, she didn't hesitate. Her fingers slid into his, steady and sure. Warm, real, earned. No speeches, no dramatic music. Just the quiet understanding that they'd done the hard work, slowly, imperfectly, and together. Remember, she said softly, the first time we sat here? He smiled. Yeah, you were annoyed about the pigeons. You were pretending not to be cold. I was absolutely freezing. She laughed, really laughed. He squeezed her hand. After a moment, she whispered something only he'd remember. 8:47. He nodded, the meaning settling between them with all the weight of a shared truth. Yeah, he said. That's when everything started. They stayed there until the light faded, hands intertwined, breathing the same quiet air. Not perfect, not magical, just grounded, warm. The kind of ending you earn, not declare.